All right, good morning to you. Very welcome along to Tuesday mornings off the ball AM. We're getting shit from our producer for having the riveting conversation of the exact distance that the ball travelled in the air from Ronan Mara's sideline.
Which we've established is over 85 metres, that the ball only needed to travel 85 metres, which it duly did, and a bit.
Well, I haven't established it. At GAA_stats has done the hard work for us using Pythagoras' theorem.
Yeah, a good old throwback to secondary school days.
Yeah, so basically the length of the hypotenuse is the distance the ball travelled. He's got the exact measurements of Semple, and he's given it roughly as 45 times squared plus 72.5 squared. Gives you 85 when you get the square root of that. So 85 metres, slightly over 85 metres is the distance. It was an unbelievable beat of skill.
Yeah, it was absolutely incredible. But like this family now is sort of on the cusp of being something where you're like, hold on a minute, is this a new dynasty that's emerging in hurling? Tipperary are obviously hot favourites now to win the All-Ireland because they seem to be back with a different sort of vengeance this year. They got the All-Ireland win and the celebratory kind of post the hangover of an All-Ireland win out of their system. Now they're back with a vengeance. Now they're looking to win this year's All-Ireland and next year's All-Ireland and the year after's All-Ireland.
Can't do two in a row.
Well, that's what's been labelled against them. So they're not just here for this year, they're here for next year as well. And when you've got a potential dynasty like that in the team, with skill like that in your locker, there's every potential for that. And it's just one of a number of really, really interesting things that have come out of the weekend.
Yeah, and to look forward to next weekend as well. Obviously, they're at Nolan Park. They don't have an amazing record there. And they don't have an amazing record in the... there's Shane Stapleton there. Ronan Mara should be teeing off at Augusta this year. That was from past the midway line. A lad from Fecal years ago, just as I was starting senior, used to hit all his frees as a cut. Says Dalo. Wow, that's amazing. He probably took the frees off him anyway. They haven't gone over either anyway. Way, Dalo not backing down from... I mean, Dalo famously takes a free off Shawnee McMahon, who's like the best long-range free taker in the country at the time. He's like, no, I'm taking this. It's the winner in All-Ireland, I'm going to take it.
Yeah,
and nails it.
It's stones right there. Like I'm not sure who the lad from Fecal was, but certainly there's a couple of people who just roll up to the golf club every so often and just hit a whopper of a drive. And there's people there who are like in the gym 4 times a week working on their body shape to actually get their drive perfect. And then just some guy who walks up and just pucks the ball 200 yards or whatever. So Ronan Mara is a little bit different to that for sure, but there's a certain natural gift there, let's just say, that you can't quite teach.
Yeah, I'd say hours and hours of practice though, and Paddy always being a little bit better than you, driving you on.
Yeah, the brotherly jealousy. I did kind of, I'm only saying this now, kind of being smart in hindsight, but I did kind of pose the point to Shane Stapleton in here a couple of weeks ago.
Off air or on air?
Oh, on air actually.
Oh, okay, there's a record of this.
And I just said, is there a potential that Ronan Mara becomes better than his brother? And he said no chance. I did Google Ronan Maher at that point, and I didn't realise he was only 22. I think I Googled the wrong Maher or something, because in my head he was 24, 25. So I thought, okay, so the level of improvement here, he's pretty much close to his peak, but clearly not. He's only going to get better and better as the next couple of years come by.
Yeah, well, if they stick him in midfield and he gets more time. I mean, obviously the main question is there ever a possibility that Shane becomes the better Stapleton? Like, I mean, clearly, you know, he's got that back-to-back Club All-Irelands now.
Well, if you look at his trajectory after last year...
He's on that fitness regime.
His minutes have improved exponentially in All-Ireland finals in the space of 12 months.
Yeah, poor Shane. Wins two back-to-back All-Irelands and becomes the butt of jokes here on Off the Ball AM.
Well, in exchange for that, he has also become the media personality of the Coola team.
Yeah, it's true. It's like...
like when people think of Coola, everybody will remember Shane Stapleton.
Yeah.
They'll remember, they had the really good footballer Conor O'Callaghan, but the only person I remember is that fella who used to do all the media interviews and say crazy stuff.
Dressed a bit like a priest sometimes.
Yeah, speaking into his own dictaphone, interviewing himself post-match and all that sort of stuff. That's Shane Stapleton.
Wow. Well, he'll be in with us a little bit later on in the week to talk hurling, so we'll
Thursday morning
give him the opportunity to respond in kind then. I should tell you what's coming up tonight. Real Madrid and Juve, and Sevilla against Bayern in the Champions League. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on, and we'll obviously be responding to it tomorrow. Before all that though, we're going to, here's what's coming up. We're going to talk about the Masters a little bit later on. We've got the sports pages. We've got Madrid against Juve. David Brady's going to come in and talk to us about really the whole league. I mean, we look back on the league finals and the weekend that was, but in particular we'll look back on the whole league. So if you have any Gaelic football related questions or comments for DB, now's not the worst time to be getting in touch with us at Off the Ball AM on Twitter. And we'll also obviously be talking rugby in the Champions Cup. Fiona, Steed and Cian Tracey are going to talk to us about a magical weekend of rugby right across Europe, which has led to another existential crisis in the Premiership in England. I mean, how bad a weekend can it be if there's an existential crisis about the Premiership in England? Pretty good weekend, I would say. Time for the papers.
OTB AM.
In association with Air. Get Air Sport free with Air Broadband.
We'll start with the Irish Independent this morning. It was, of course, the Irish Grand National at Fairyhouse yesterday, and Gordon Elliott finally got his hands on the prize. He's there with his horse, General Principle, after an unbelievable finish, really, yesterday in yesterday's Irish National. Ridiculous ground, mud flying everywhere. We weren't quite sure whether or not the horses would actually jump the final fence. I was starting to think to myself, what happens now? Because none of these horses are able to actually jump this final fence, but sure enough, a few of them got over, and it was kind of a stumble to the finish line. General Principle at around 20-1, I think, starting price, winning for JJ Slevin and Gordon Elliott. So Elliott's pretty much won it all now, and he looks in the box seat to win the Trainers' Championship. Punchestown, of course, at the end of the month will be the decisive factor in all of that, but I think he's 3-1 on or something now to actually win that Trainers' Championship.
Still, though, you wouldn't put it past Willie Mullins to come back. This might be one of those times where you think, yeah, there's a bit of value to be had about a Willie Mullins themed bet.
Yeah, it looked a pretty long shot last year, and that was even going into Cheltenham, whereas we're at the far side of Cheltenham now, and we haven't had the big turnaround that Mullins enjoyed at the back end of Cheltenham last year. So it would be unbelievable if Mullins managed to turn it around at this point. But still, if there's one man who can do it, it is him. Elliott's Lucky 13 reads the headline on the Irish Daily Mail. Less fancied of Gordon's runners hits jackpot. We can go all the way in Europe, says Leavy as well. That's the rugby lead on the back of the Irish Daily Mail. It's rugby as well on the front page of the sports section in the Irish Times this morning. It's Dan the Man, pride of the family, on a special day for the Leavys. And the only consolation is that next season can hardly be worse. That's the British press as a result of Saracens getting creamed by Leinster on Sunday. I might just show you the back page of the Times Ireland edition as well. I think that's just reverting back to horse racing again this morning in terms of Gordon Elliott's win on yesterday, in fact. That is the front page of the Times Ireland edition.
Yeah, interesting that schools are going to teach pupils about the age of consent. This is the continuing fallout from the rape trial last week, so it's good to see that there is activity happening on the back of it, as opposed to just the usual talking nonsense that you hear generally in the back of these stories. There's the back of it there.
Yeah, General Principle there, defying the odds in dramatic national, and as you say there, the fallout from the rape trial as well, continuing in the sports pages. John O'Gibbs saying the rape trial has not derailed us, a decision yet to be made after the internal review being conducted in Dublin by the IRFU.
So, the back pages of some of the tabloids. You've got Mo Hope. Van Dijk backs Salah to kill Man City's Euro dreams. You've got Mo Hope, so you do have some hope. It's not no hope, which is what no hope, Mo Hope would have rhymed with. So it doesn't make any sense.
Or is
it makes
like
no sense.
More money, more problems, as in you've got more hope now?
Well, they do have some, yeah. That's what Virgil van Dijk backs his teammate. I mean, come on, it makes no sense.
It does.
I don't know if have you ever read any of the Ian Wright stuff in The Sun? It's barely literate. It doesn't make, it's like it doesn't even scan. Someone should read it back before they print it. It remains one of the game's most glamorous jobs. But if, probably when, Antonio Conte leaves Stamford Bridge at the end of the season, the Chelsea hot seat is also in big danger of being an appointment far from the no-brainer it once was. What the fuck does that mean? Tell me.
Well, you're going to have to read it out about 3 or 4 more times before I can actually finally decipher that.
But if, probably when, Antonio Conte leaves Stamford Bridge at the end of the season, the Chelsea hot seat is also in big danger of being an appointment far from the no-brainer it once was. What does it mean?
I'm still not getting it. Still not even in the ballpark.
But if, probably when, Antonio Conte leaves Stamford Bridge at the end of the season.
Okay, I've got that far. Antonio Conte is in a position where he will definitely not, yes, definitely leave, is what he's saying.
But let's just ignore that. We can delete that part, right? Antonio Conte's leaving. Mm-hmm. The Chelsea hot seat is also in big danger of being an appointment far from the no-brainer it once was. What does it mean, Owen?
It's a tongue twister, first of all. And
the Chelsea hot seat is in big danger of being an appointment far from the no-brainer it once was. An appointment?
Okay, so the hot seat is in peril of something here. The seat itself. And the seat itself gets appointed to a position of authority rather than an individual who will get appointed into the seat. So it's a very interesting one. I've never heard somebody refer to a position as kind of an actual animate object, which he's doing here. So the Chelsea hot seat is a thing all in of itself that Ian Wright clearly thinks it is here. It's an interesting theory. It's
nonsensical. It makes no sense. He's basically saying the Chelsea job not as attractive as it once was.
Well, you'd like to think that that's what his point is, but
that's what he's saying. So he's trying to say that. But it's in danger of being an appointment far from the no-brainer it once was. Far from a no-brainer that it once was. In danger of. Sorry, I got a little bit distracted. However, Tao of the morning to you definitely also comes from the Sun today. Leavy is black-eyed pleased. I like that.
It is good. It's very, very, very good. Leavy, the permanently black-eyed at this point, just always in the wars. And also, you missed the Black Eyed Peas subhead there as well. Damn keen to get this party started.
Oh, yeah.
So,
this is like, there are brilliant sub-editors. Someone just needs to sub the copy. Ian, what do you mean when you're saying it's in danger of becoming a no-brainer, non-no-brainer? What?
I'd like to think that's Neil O'Riordan himself.
That probably is.
Like, big Black Eyed Peas fan, you'd imagine.
Could well be. I mean, obviously they were really much better before they got famous.
They were never any good.
Oh, Weekend's class.
No.
Yeah.
It's not.
It is.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, the Black Eyed Peas have never released any good music.
The Weekend is a brilliant song.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. Take It to the Max. This is their other stuff. This is also not that... Max Allegri is ready to be the Chelsea boss next season. I mean, yeah, of course he is, because he doesn't have a massive game against Real Madrid tonight. But all the English papers are over talking about Allegri wanting to get the hell out of there. No, I've already done the You've Got Mo Hope. Triple threat for Pep. City boss wary of real danger. Pool's front trio post. Okay, yeah, so that's also an issue there, that Liverpool have some good players. Manchester City. Liverpool and City not actually playing this week, so I don't know why everybody's talking about it. Conte. Oh, this is the other one, right? Conte wait to leave Chelsea. You have to read it in a very posh English accent to get.
Well, it has come straight from the UK, this headline.
Conte wait to leave Chelsea.
Exactly.
Can't wait.
Perfect.
Can't wait to leave Chelsea.
Now I get it. I didn't get it until you read it in that English accent.
I didn't either. I was like, Conte, he has to wait to leave? What?
Well, maybe he is. Maybe the...
Read the tabloids with a marble in your mouth, like the Oxbridge sub-editors, and then go, okay. The other thing that's happened, Kevin De Bruyne says, I deserve the top award. Have you seen this?
I actually haven't.
So De Bruyne is like, yeah, I'm player of the year. I mean, Mo Salah's really good, but I'm player of the year.
Well, he is.
I've been brilliant in every game. I've been unbelievably consistent. It'll be great for the team if I win this award.
Yeah, which it will. Fair play to him for coming out and saying it. How many Premier League titles will Mo Salah have at the end of the year? 0. How many Premier League titles will Kevin De Bruyne have in his pocket at the end of the year? 1. And it's mainly down to him.
Mo Salah's got inferior. David Silva's been sensational. Aguero's scored thousands of goals. Definitely, you would say the situation Mo Salah finds himself in is not as good a situation as the situation Kevin De Bruyne finds himself in. So there's room for discussion. It's interesting that De Bruyne is like, I want the award. I deserve the award. Give me the award.
Well, we live in the era of the individual accolade. These things are so important. I mean, Cristiano Ronaldo has made no shame of the fact that he loves beating Messi to the Ballon d'Or whenever he does so. And Kevin De Bruyne should feel the same. Winning the Premier League Player of the Year is now an important accolade. I think it has been for quite some time. There was a humility about the award, but there is nothing humble about football anymore.
De Bruyne is older than you.
Of course he is.
He's the spokesperson for your generation. This is who you are now.
I want an individual accolade. I want whatever that is. There's no individual accolade on offer, but if there was an individual accolade on offer,
you can just go hunting for them now.
Exactly, but whatever. Geez, I don't know what. I might actually go looking for individual accolades. You know, best something or I really can't. I can't think of anything I do well. But
if anybody has any good ideas for an award for Eoin, there you can. Tweet us at Off the Ball AM.
In the meantime, just a couple of more back pages to show you. The front page of the Irish Examiner sports section gets the Masters build-up underway. From El Nino to El Hombre, Tranquil Garcia returns to Augusta at peace with his golf and his life. And we'll show you the front page of the Daily Telegraph sports section now. I think they're also going with the Masters this morning. We'll skip that for the time being and move on to the Guardian back page. The making of Ederson reads the headline here, how Manchester City's number 1 went from left back to being one of the world's best goalkeepers. There's an interview with him there this week, and we'll show you the Telegraph. Tigers back in the prowl. Paul Hayward is at Augusta for the Telegraph this week, and you've also got Pochettino in line for a huge new Spurs deal. Hopefully that's the same with numerous players from a Spurs perspective. That way they might continue these improvements.
Yeah, I mean, now's the time to do it, right? They're a proper top 4 team. You get a period at bat. You pay your top players. I walked in this morning and Sunday's newspapers were lying around, and it was all about how Dele Alli was playing his way out of the starting team for England. It was like, oh yeah, Sunday's papers, today's chip wrappers. Except they don't wrap chips anymore. What papers anymore, because the newsprint comes all over them. It's a bit gross, right? But you know the theory.
Well, they do when you're laughing at Conte wait to leave Chelsea and stuff like that. Then you're eating your chips out of a newspaper for sure if you actually get that headline first time. But
did you get it first time? Was I just being thick?
Yes, you were being very thick.
Was I really?
Yeah, very much so. I read everything I read in the British accent.
Well, that's different though. That's like
you've got to adjust for this.
No. But it's like I'm just reading this like a normal person. It's like, what does this mean?
No, you were just being pretty thick about it. I think.
Okay, fair enough. Screw you, buddy.
It's clear pun. It was very, very easy to get.
There was one other really good headline which I can't find anymore. I was looking for it there, but so there was another tab of the morning to you. But taxi for Pardew. That was my other thing this weekend. Best tweet of the weekend was that the number of taxis stolen by his players was more than the number of wins that he had as a Premier League manager. It's like, well, that's the stat of all time. Who says stats are overrated? I'm all for advanced analytics if this is the type of stuff that they're coming up with.
They must be. Maybe they're just very expensive taxi prices in that part of England. We don't know.
It was Barcelona. They were running it in Barcelona. They
okay.
nicked a cab on Las Ramblas.
It's revenge for all the thieves that exist in Las Ramblas. It's like, I got my wallet stolen on the street. I'm now going to take it out on the taxi drivers on this world famous street.
Yeah. Classy dudes. So that was the crack with Alan Pardew. Obviously got sacked over the course of the weekend. If you missed that, I mean, I'm sure lots of people missed loads of good stuff over the weekend. Going to do rugby in just a minute.
We are?
Yeah. Well, we can actually do it now because we may as well. No point delaying this any longer. It was an amazing weekend for Leinster and Munster. Not such a great weekend from a Connacht perspective. They were beaten by Gloucester early on Saturday afternoon. But first, let's hear from Alan Quinlan on Munster.
Yeah, look, anything can happen in semi-finals. I think they'll take great pleasure and satisfaction and out of the performance today. They've been hit with so many bloody injuries in the last few weeks, and on the injury front, nothing's went right for them. So to put in the effort they did today, it was tremendous. Who will it be, Racing or Clermont? We'll have to wait and see. They're either going to Saint Etienne or Bordeaux. But you know, I think there's so many people who will travel, and the crowd will help them. The excitement, the history in the competition. So you never know. It's a tall order for them to go on and win it, considering the other teams in the competition. But you could never write them off, and I think they're creating their own legacy, and I think it's a remarkable achievement for this team, given the injuries and the change of coach and a lot of stuff that went on at the start of the season, to be where they're at.
Yeah, Alan Quinlan speaking with Oisín before, obviously, the Clermont Racing game had gone in Racing's favour. Cian Tracey, the Irish Independent, is with us this morning. Good morning to you.
Sure.
Going to get to Fiona Steed in just a minute as well. The fact that the game is in Bordeaux and that it is Paris who are playing is great, because it means that none of the Racing fans are, well, a small pocket of them will travel to Bordeaux, but it could actually be one of those famous Munster occasions where the entire stadium is red.
Yeah, I think Munster fans obviously have a name for finding tickets some way possible. I think you could see it straight after the game on Twitter. Aer Lingus had put up, we're putting on extra flights, and people are demanding why aren't they going from Cork, why aren't they going from Shannon? So yeah, they're going to get their hands on the tickets anyway. I think we've seen it over the years, haven't we? And Munster have been to Bordeaux before as well, so I'd expect more of the same. Yeah,
I think we can get Fiona Steeds. Now, Fiona, I'd say as part of your memory of supporting Munster down through the years, there are some famous occasions. Am I right in saying that one of the first big wins was in Bordeaux as far back as 2000?
That's it, yeah, it was indeed. And I was talking to John about it last night. He actually fell over the line for a try, I think, one of his rare ones. So, yeah, I mean, I wasn't at that. That was slightly before we hooked up, for want of a better word. But yeah, Bordeaux has happy memories. So it's strange that, I don't know if you've covered it, why Racing do we know why they're taking it all the way down there?
So they don't get to pick. I think it's just, you might know the ins and outs.
Neutral venue,
Yeah.
which I guess that's why Scarlets are up in arms that Leinster get to play at the Aviva, you know.
Yeah, Scarlets are up in arms about a lot of stuff. Their social media, their fan social media has been pretty interesting. But I was just saying there before you come on that actually it's great for Munster, because you could easily see this being at least 50-50 and probably 70-30 Munster fans by the time kickoff comes.
Oh, absolutely. I think so. And I think they'll have no problem getting, getting tickets. I mean, down through the years, like, we always managed to get them wherever. And I mean, the sense that I got after, Saturday was, it was like, such a encouraging atmosphere, back to a bit of nostalgia, but, with this new young breed of guys that are playing, which is fantastic. But that's why I think as well, like, I know you're saying they didn't get to pick, but surely they could have picked Parc de France or Stade de France, in Paris and kept it there. But then maybe they'd be worried that more Munster people would get out, and get over, easier to get to Paris,
It's funny, talking to both of you separately before about what we were going to talk about, you both picked the centre partnerships as something that we should look about. You in particular have written about them today. And the difference in terms of experience and also in size. They were giving up a significant amount of heft, but the Munster partnership in the centre was sensational.
Yeah, I mean, I have a piece in the paper about it today. Of all the centres that they could have picked, if everyone was fit, they're the smallest and the lightest, probably going up against two of the biggest you're ever likely to face in World Rugby. And yeah, I mean, I think Rory Scannell is just such an underrated player. Last week there was doubts over several Munster players, but I think the one that everyone was really concerned about was Scannell, particularly because Jaco Taude and Chris Farrell are out injured, but also because I think Roy Scannell has a habit of making other players look good. I think Sam Arnold fed off that the other day. They're incredible. They're understanding, they're backing up of each other. I mean, one would go low, one would chop low, one would chop high in the tackle. They were covering each other if one messed up. And I think the one time I was highlighting the paper today that they did get disconnected, Toulon punished them, which just goes to show that was the only time they were actually able to score a try, and it was the one time that the two lads got disconnected. So yeah, I thought they were outstanding. I think Sam Arnold has been in Carton House for the last few weeks. I know he didn't play for Ireland, but I mean, just being in that environment can only have been a good thing, and I would fully probably expect him to get caps in summer tour now.
Fiona, what impressed you about them?
Well, what I love about Scannell really is, like, he is the second 5'8". His distribution as well, the few limited opportunities, but he was on the ball even, and I haven't done the stats, but as often as Keatley, he just has such a lovely pass, and he really does bring other players into play. And I think if Ireland ever wanted to go down that route of a different type of inside centre, shall we say, then Scannell would be the man. If they ever wanted to change up their game plan and play it a little bit, have a second distributor, which he was fantastic about it. And then, like, when I was talking to Tommy last night, just the matchup, there's no way, like, people would even say they shouldn't have been on the same pitch as Nano and Bastero in terms of physical size, but also experience, honours that the other two guys have, the wages that they're on. I would hesitate to guess the difference in wages between our two centres in Munster and the two lads in Toulon. But it counts for nothing once you get on the pitch and once you're in Thomond Park and have that, that huge sense. And it'll just have done them so much good. And like Cian was saying, defensively is probably where they were at it, apart from the odd occasion. They were fantastic. They kept their spacing really well. They were so aggressive as well in the tackle, and the timing of when to make the hit or whether to shadow out so that Wooten wasn't exposed on the wing, apart from, as I say, that one time or so. So they were just great and totally, I suppose, unsung perhaps outside the province, but like, they've been working away really well down here. We sort of know what they're all about,
What's your take on that 10-12 channel, Fiona, and how they might interact with Ian Keatley? Because on a very obvious level, you've got that left boot from Rory Scannell, which worked so effectively on Saturday as well.
Yeah, no, I really think it's a really nice combination, and it takes the pressure off Keatley, and he's playing really, really well. But again, understated. But he distributed a lot to Scannell, who then made the decision. Possibly didn't kick as much as he could do in other games, but they just, I suppose, possession stats. If we look at the first, 19 minutes, we were sitting there watching it, going, God, if they hold out here, they just kept going with in terms of defence and soaked up the pressure, and then like Toulon didn't really seem to have another option for all the skill set that they have. They went back to that, oh God, we'll try a drop goal, or we'll try a kick through, whereas you feel that Munster, with more time on the ball, have more intelligence in terms of that Scannell would be able to open up defences, and I think he would be there regardless in that sort of role as to, you know, whether Tote was there or he would probably play outside him. I think he's just such an underrated outside of the province player, but he just offers so much. Like, his pass off his left hand is so sweet as well. It's just lovely.
Scannell's 24, Sam Arnold's 22 next week. It's a brilliant thing to be able to have. So you've got Tarte and Chris Farrell injured, and everybody's like, ooh, what's going to happen next? But actually, the strength and depth that they have is fairly sensational. And Sam Arnold's story, grows up in England. Harlequins want him, but they want him as a scrum half. He wants to play centre. Goes to Ulster. His ma's from Wexford, and I think he's got a grandparent from Bear Island as well. So there's another Wexford Bear Island connection there. It's brilliant that we're getting players like this to come through and have this experience, and then to look up at the big screen and go, that's man Nanu on the bench, and he's just gone off because we've just killed him.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then they bring on Fekitoa, who's no slouch either, a former All Black. But yeah, Sam Arnold is very interesting. I remember watching him for the Ireland under-20s, and he was outstanding. His problem was that he was really hampered by injuries up in Ulster. Ulster obviously had a lot of centres. They cut their losses and they decided to offload him. Now, if you look at the Ulster situation now, they're probably thinking, why did we leave this guy go? But I think anyone who has seen Arnold from a young age knew that he was capable of this. I don't think that this is an overnight thing, And again, I go back to, there's a reason why Joe Schmidt has had him in Carton House. Like, he's been on the radar for quite a while, and I think he's always promised to deliver a performance like that, and that was the biggest game of his career, and he certainly didn't disappoint.
Is he definitely a 13? Is that his, or is he...
He can play 12 too. I think Scannell is the first choice 12. I think Fiona's right. I think Scannell played a lot of rugby when he was younger at out half, and that's why you're seeing his distribution game. He comes in and he plays first receiver. I mean, that was something we were talking about a lot in November in the Six Nations with Ireland, giving Johnny Sexton another option. Scannell does that with Munster, and he takes a lot of the pressure off Keatley when he can step in there, and then you have the left foot as well. So they complement each other quite well, and like I said, that's not to mention the two international centres that they're missing.
Yeah.
Fiona, just on Thomond Park and how big a loss that'll be, just not having the home crowd going to Bordeaux, obviously. Obviously they play a huge part, and I wasn't at the game on Saturday, but everybody who was there says that this was an unbelievably special atmosphere on Saturday. At the same time though, and without doing a disservice to the crowd, does it do a disservice to the team when we talk about Thomond Park as a special place all the time? Because let's not forget that Toulon showed up. I mean, they had more possession, they had more territory, they gave away less penalties than Munster. It wasn't a bad performance by any stretch of the imagination, and say if you take Conor Murray's try even, it was a moment of coolness, a moment of unbelievably quick thinking, and we seem to associate Munster at Thomond Park with heat of the moment, really energised, really caught up in the emotion of it all, whereas you have this moment of genius which can only come from a very cool mind. So, are you worried leaving Thomond Park at all as a result of those reasons I've outlined at all?
No, not at all. I think we've gone beyond, the 10 years ago where, God, we had to have the crowd and we had to have, Thomond Park, and it was proven even back then that, we could travel. And this Munster team, they're, all of the lads now have, you've met the age ranges there, 22, 24, but they've come up through the system. Peter O'Mahony has come through the Munster system, the academy, the under-20s, all of that. And they understand, and they've been professionals all of their lives, if you know what I mean, all of their rugby lives. So they're going to be clear, clinical. But it's just that uniqueness between the fans. I mean, there was a snapshot. I mean, we didn't go in now because we prefer to watch it in detail at home. And there was a snapshot 1 minute of this lady, white-haired, roaring on. And in the next minute, you had the 6-year-old boy whose face went from agony to ecstasy as the camera poured on it. And that's just lovely, and it's just part of it. But that's not to say that it's not in Leinster, and I think it would do a disservice to fans around the country who have grown up on the back of, Munster being successful and then Leinster being successful, Connacht as well. And so that the fans are there. I don't think going to Bordeaux will be an issue. I think, like we touched on at the start, are the Racing fans going to move out of Paris, and Munster long for these special days where they get to do the European journeys. Goodness me, that there's been so many of them, but they haven't, a semi-final in the south of France, like, who cares? Let's go for it.
Yeah.
and let's crack on. Like,
yeah, a bit of a wine tasting tour. Bordeaux's a nice place. Jack O'Donoghue was playing as a flanker, and Jack O'Donoghue is one of those players who you thought 3 or 4 years ago was going to be an absolute superstar, and was probably going to be nailed on much sooner than this. For whatever reason, severe level of competition in the back row, various injuries, he hasn't quite hit the point where he's a first name on the team sheet starter. But a few more performances like Saturday, and all of a sudden you're like, come on, get him in the team.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think there's any doubt about his quality. I think his issue has been consistency. Like you said, he's been shipped in and out of the team. He's had a couple of injuries, but I think it's those weeks where no one's watching, when it's against Zebra or something. They're the games that he needs to not drop his level of performances, and I think at times he'd be the first to admit that he hasn't quite kept up that level. I mean, I think you're right, he was outstanding. Out of position, I mean, he's much more comfortable as a 6 or an 8, but again, against a huge back row, he dominated the breakdown, he dominated the collisions. But yeah, he needs to find a consistency, I think, over a prolonged period. And
is there any possibility he's actually a 7, that you find this out as a 24-year-old? All the time my game is actually perfectly suited now to this.
He could be, but I think if Tommy O'Donnell and Chris Calita are fit, I think he's probably third choice.
They're both gone for the rest of the year, though.
Yeah.
So, like...
Well, it's needs must now. The only recognised 7 they have is Conor Oliver, and he played for the A's last week, so I don't see him playing in a Champions Cup semi-final now. He's going on tour to South Africa with them. It'll be interesting to see how he gets on over the next 2 weeks, but Robin Copeland obviously came in as well, but he's leaving at the end of the season, so I think they're much better off hedging their bets with Jack O'Donoghue, because he's their guy. He's going to be there for the long period of time. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. It's definitely his jersey to lose, and you'd expect him to start again if form stays the same.
Just from the way yourself and Fiona are chatting there, in terms of the likes of Jack O'Donoghue, in terms of the age profile of this team and the age profile of the Leinster team, I think it's kind of easy to forget that these guys were kids watching the Munster and Leinster teams arrive and dominate Europe from whatever 2006 onwards. So, like, there's a potential that this becomes the best year in the history of Irish professional rugby. Like, we've obviously had the Grand Slam. If it's a Leinster-Munster final, I think it is the best year in the history, the best season in the history of Irish professional rugby, no?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're right. People do forget that this is a young Munster team as well. I guess Leinster get a lot of the plaudits because their guys are making inroads in the international stage. But I mean, behind them, there's Munster guys chomping at the bit. I thought Rory Scanlon was unbelievably unlucky not to play in the Six Nations, especially with Ireland's injury problems in the centre. Jack O'Donoghue probably less so for the reasons that I spoke about, consistency. But yeah, you're right. Scarlets coming back to Dublin. Leinster looking for revenge. I mean, I think Munster will unquestionably outnumber in terms of supporters in Bordeaux, and in a strange way, I think it's a good thing that they've played Racing already this season. I think if they were playing Toulon in the semi-final there, it's a little bit more daunting because you're going into the unknown a bit more. They pushed Racing very close in their own backyard. They actually probably should have won that game, but their discipline was really, really poor in Paris that day. So yeah, I don't think Munster have anything to fear, and ironically so, if it was a different French team, I think that would be an altogether different proposition.
Definitely. I think just from that game in Paris, I think Conor Murray having the backing of his own boot a little bit. I mean, he was very close with a couple of long-range efforts that day in the arena, and I think that's one little facet that could become a key part of that semi-final anyway when they go to Bordeaux. Yeah,
and we should definitely talk about Donnacha Ryan. I mean, at the time it seemed like it was a really bad decision to let him go, but it looked like maybe that was just a lifestyle choice, that he wanted to go and get out of his comfort zone. But it's not great that he has such an intimate knowledge of exactly what Munster are going to throw in terms of the line out and in terms of their planning and defence and all the rest of the stuff. It's a real pity that he is such a superstar at the moment for wrestling.
Oh, look, he's doing great, isn't he? And I suppose he's from the same neck of the woods as myself, and I'm delighted for him. You take a chance in your career, and it's worked out really well. I mean, he had neck surgery and everything, before the start of the season. So fair play to him, But it is and it isn't. I mean, I think Van Gran has come in, he's changed things a little bit, he's tweaked things a little bit. And the other side of it is they also know Ryan really well, and they know his little signs when he's about to jump and about to do and different things. And like the level of analysis these days is so much that really it's not going to come down to one player knowing sort of the inside secrets, and because they know that he'll know, they'll change things up accordingly. So I don't see it. I'm delighted for Donnchadh. I don't see it as being key. I think he'll have an influence because of the type of player that he is. I mean, I think Peter O'Mahony at line-out time defensively at the weekend was just fantastic, as he has been for Ireland as well. And, you know, often unseen, that piece of his work. So I think that'll be key as well going forward. And just on Jack O'Donoghue, I actually think he could be a 7 in 8's clothing, to be honest. I think he could end up being there. And if Cleete hadn't come in, I mean, you know, he's just been phenomenal, really. And that's where you look at bringing players in, young lads, you know, homegrown, sort of maybe getting pushed down the pecking order, but Jack O'Donoghue has come back stronger for us and was immense. And Conor Oliver, you know, he's been really good as well when played, but he's had a lot of injuries. He's just sort of growing into his body and his frame at the moment, and I mean, taking the step up from under 20s over the last few years, that you know, he's just had a few injuries around the shoulder area and stuff, so I expect him to come back. He's a real nugget over the ball, you know, so I think there is the strength and depth, and it's great. And like you've said there, it's a golden era, and I can see Irish provinces winning everything this year, you know, in terms of like there'll be three cups or medals in the country by the end of the year, but I don't know who. I won't nail my colours to the mast yet as to who I think.
We should talk about Andrew Conway and his moment of skill to win the game at the end. A lot of people let that ball go out and they go, you know, but Conway decided to back himself. And, you know, you think about the year that he's had where it looked like he was very close to being at least in the matchday squad, if not starting for Ireland. And then injury robbed him of a place in the Grand Slam. And then it looks like injury might even rob him of a place in that game. And then just to produce that was sensational.
It was absolutely sensational. And I mean, a lot of people have done a lot of analysis on that try, and just something I picked up, you know, yesterday was that the look that he gave when the ball was in flight as to where the touchline was, you know, and then knew exactly where he was, but then didn't take his eye off the ball, managed to, you know, was there an inch in it or a centimetre? Absolutely phenomenal. And again, like, for me, with the Munster backline, it's the sum of their parts, but the collective then is just so much better than each individual on paper. You know, if you look at, I suppose Stockdale was so fantastic for Ireland. I still wouldn't have given him Six Nations Player of the Year though, but there we go, he scored some excellent tries, and like that could have possibly been Conway, but it's just they play so well together, and they're sort of underrated again outside the province, all across the back line, but yet they perform for each other. And then Conway, that was just, it was sublime, like, and he just is, he's rapid, like he's so quick, but he just had such all-round footballing sense. And another person, I suppose with Sam Arnold as well, you look at people finding a new province and making it their home, don't you? And like Conway is someone who's really grown in Munster, you know, and become very much part of the fabric there.
Yeah, this was Conway's reputation as a kid. It was like he could do this. He was the Jordan Larmour of his time without actually making it to the provincial level and doing it at that level. But here we're starting to see he has that skill set and all the rest of the stuff that he's added during his time at Munster.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he, after one of the games in November, he was very honest. He came out and spoke to us, and he said that he almost just expected it to happen when he came out of school, that he fell into the trap when schools rugby was so easy for him. You know, he was scoring tries like that all the time, even there's clips of him from the junior cup final scoring 2 crackers. But yeah, I think you fall into that trap, a false sense of security that you don't have to work at the small things, and he admitted that was the case, and he has a much more holistic approach to how he approaches the game now. And you know, he's focusing on the little things. He's probably focusing on things like that, you know, catching the ball and things like that he just wasn't doing. And he's reaping the rewards for that now. Again, he's another one who's benefited hugely from being in the Ireland camp. I mean, judging on his form from November, I don't think there's any question he would have been in the matchday squad if he'd been fit. But yeah, he's come down to Munster and he's rebuilt his career, and Munster are reaping the benefits for that now as well.
The Zebo went off injured. Do we know the nature or exactly?
I think he's fine because he's gone to South Africa with the squad, so I don't think there's any way they'd bring him. They wouldn't need to bring him, so yeah. I expect he's absolutely fine. Yeah.
Okay. Any other bumps and bruises from that? That's in terms of
nothing that came out. I mean, the Munster confirmed that Tommy O'Donnell was out for the season. That was the biggest one, really. But yeah, considering the guys they were playing against, they probably got lucky there.
Just in terms of that Conway try, like I've watched it about 150 times at this stage. It's absolutely sensational. But there is kind of an element of maybe Toulon looking at Andrew Conway running in from the wing. They're like, this guy's going to do nothing. I mean, Andrew Conway's not a Grand Slam winner. Probably unaware of the fact that he was injured for the Six Nations, and it's like, we've never even heard of this guy. I mean, he's not going to do this. And the next thing, the ball's dotted down and they've lost the game. And I wonder, is there an element of that kind of complacency that could... I don't want to call it complacent because it was a moment of genius from Andrew Conway. But if Munster are looking at Racing and they're like, we've still got a load of aces up our sleeve that Racing don't even know about. Well,
yeah, if you look at Tuisova there, the guy who was chasing him, can you imagine an Irish player doing that? Like, he would have been hauled off. That guy is so good going forward, but defensively he's a liability. And I mean, we saw something similar in the pool stages where he just didn't chase his man at all. It was similar there, but I guess Munster probably had targeted something like that. Not that they had planned to score a try like that, but they know that guy is a defensive liability, and maybe there is an element of that. Yeah, he's not a Grand Slam winner. Like, they're probably going, who is Sam Arnold, who's Rory Scallon, Bassero and Nanu with Fekitoa to come off, and maybe they did underestimate them. And I think beating Claremont, I think it was 49-0 the previous week, probably played into Munster's hands a little bit, because they came out last week and it was the backs against the wall. It was exactly the kind of stuff that Munster feed off when the big teams are coming to Limerick. But yeah, they probably underestimated them a little bit, and that's just Munster's bread and butter, isn't it? A French team coming to town and underestimating how good that they can be.
What about Leinster's performance? This was a game where we thought Saracens were coming back to the level that was the best in Europe. They literally going for a level of dominance that one other team has ever reached in European rugby history, and they'd recovered from an early season blip. They had most of their best players available to them, and while there was some tension in the second half, there was never a point where Leinster looked in any significant danger.
No, I mean, I think we have to give Leinster their credit. They were incredible. It was a brilliant performance, but I was really disappointed with Saracens. I think you're right. We were really expecting, especially what happened in Twickenham, we were expecting a backlash because there's so many similar guys playing. But I think we're probably seeing two clubs in different terms of their stages of development. Leinster are only going one way. We saw the story in the paper today that Saracens,
they're up for sale.
Yeah, I mean, that can't help. I mean, those South African buyers have been pumping money into them for the last 10 years, which has been what their success has been predicated on. But yeah, Leinster were awesome. They dominated the collisions, and when you consider that that's what Saracens built their two successes off over the last 2 years, Leinster were awesome. Dan Leavy just went to another level again. Another guy who, from an early age, everyone knew he was capable of this. I wouldn't be writing Saracens off just yet, but I mean, they looked tired. Very similar to England. I thought the similarities between the game were very, very striking. Having been over at Twickenham, you never felt Ireland were going to lose. Having been at the Aviva the other day, you never felt Leinster were going to lose, despite having the likes of Itoje, Farrell, guys that can change the game in an instant. But Leinster just strangled them and frustrated them, and it was a seriously good performance. Yeah,
James Ryan still hasn't lost a professional game of rugby, Fiona. It's one of those stats that, until he loses a game, I'd nearly put him out for the last 2 minutes of a game that they're losing in the Pro 14, just so it's like, yeah, no, that's finished, we can stop talking about it.
Oh, look, no, why would you? I mean, I think, and again, it's back to, like, he's been earmarked for this, way before, under 20s, say Michael's even before that, and like, fair play, and let him never lose. Well, apart from if Leinster are playing Munster in any of the two finals that are left, I have to say, he can lose one of those, but it's just great. And I would just touching on that, I think Saracens in England, they really relied on Billy Vunipola, for that go forward ball and for that grunt up front, and they haven't been able to, either team hasn't been able to replace that, and they don't have sort of, okay, what are we going to do now? And I never had any fear that Leinster were going to lose at the weekend. But like Ryan, I was just looking at some of his stats there. 17 tackles, for a second row, even tackled more than Dan Leavy. Like 21, still not at the height of his powers. I'd give him another few years before he'll hit that. And from an Irish point, it's absolutely, it's great, and it's great for Leinster. And like Dan Leavy has been outstanding. I mean, when they played Munster down at Christmas in Thomond Park, like he came away with man of the match, I think, that day. And he's just growing and has had a absolutely phenomenal last 4 or 5 months of the of the year. And you even look at is he an open side, and would he be in there if Van der Fleer wasn't injured? And but he's just doing fantastically well.
Yeah, is Sean O'Brien a 6 now? Is that like if he comes back, it's like, sorry, we've got 2 7s there, lads?
I think Sean O'Brien probably goes to 8 actually. Rhys Ruddock was the form forward arguably in Ireland before he got injured. He was incredible, and I think it's easy to forget that because so much has happened since he's been out. But I think if everyone's fit, I think it's Rhys Ruddock at 6, I think Dan Leavy at 7 and Sean O'Brien at 8, which is incredible to think when you look at Jack Conan. Max Deegan is coming through and has the capability to overtake all these guys, super talent, and Josh Van der Fleer, of course, who everyone knows how good he is, but it's an embarrassment of riches, really, isn't it? Yeah,
I mean, I thought Jordy Murphy was brilliant at the weekend. You're like, oh, he could, I mean, if he's got, I don't know what he's going to Ulster as, but you could definitely see him playing 8 for Ulster and that being his future. Yeah,
and I wonder, will Leinster come to regret leaving Jordy Murphy go? I mean, it's probably more down to Joe Schmidt and Jordy Murphy making a decision together, because let's face it, the reason he's going is to enhance his chances of playing at the World Cup. But yeah, that guy plays 6, 7 and 8 and is a 7, 8 out of 10 every time, never lets you down. And that versatility, I don't think you can take that for granted. And I wonder, like, next season, if Leinster have a couple of injuries, will they live to regret leaving?
Yeah, no doubt. There was a bang of Rocky Elton off. Maybe it was just the way the hair was flowing in the wind there at various stages. But it was funny too in the post-match that Dan Leavy was taken down a peg or two by Johnny Sexton. Was like, yeah, a bit of the Rocky Elton's about him. Doesn't really train during the week.
Yeah, what was he talking about? What was it you were referring to this week?
Yeah, I don't know. I think Dan Leavy has this, let's say, super confident attitude, and I think Johnny's probably, like you said, trying to take him down a peg or two, because, like Fiona had said, everything is going so well for him, but it's not always going to be like this, and nothing phases him, which is great on the pitch. But I guess they're the guys who are seeing what's going on behind the scenes, and they want to see him, not worried about what's coming, but maybe not taken for granted. And I guess there's a fine line between being confident and complacent.
Well, that's the thing. Like, at least he was part of the team that last year had the semi-final. Whatever, it was at that stage. I felt like this is a team in development, and so losing semi-final like that, not as big a deal. But ultimately, you think that for Sexton and for Carney and for the older players, for Easton to say losing last year's semi-final was like a massive thing. But for the younger lads, like, we'll be semi-finals all the time.
Yeah, that's a great point. Easton to say, when Johnny Sexton both came out after last season, were very public in saying that these guys need to go away and have a long, hard summer and look at themselves. Now, obviously, some of them went on the Irish tour, which would have helped them too. But yeah, it was interesting to note that they were publicly saying, I don't know, was it complacency? But there's an element of this is going to happen all the time. And I guess that's something that's going to have to be fed into Ireland as well, that, winning a Grand Slam, like you mentioned, James Ryan has never lost a professional game, but there's lots of these Leinster players, including Dan Leavy, who's never lost a game for Ireland. So, I mean, it's not always going to be like this. They've just coming around at a good time, and there's a lot of them.
And how you respond to defeat is actually far more important than never losing, because you're definitely going to lose one. One last point about this, Issa, there was some mention in the commentary at the weekend about potentially him retiring at the end of the year, and given the quality of play that he has at the moment, and also how busy next year is going to be generally for Leinster and Ireland, you kind of think, no, I mean, he looks like he's got another 3 or 4 years left.
Yeah, I think his value to the team is on and off the pitch, and it's the subtleties of, just directing people, organising, whether it's back 3 defence or, if he steps into, first, second receiver channel. He's really, really good, and he's just, I don't think we on the outside actually get to appreciate all of the other stuff that he does, around training and around the camp, because he's the ultimate professional. I mean, he made a really good line break, at the weekend as well. So, yeah, but then, what age is he? Is he up again?
35, I think.
35,
yeah. So, and, people want to go out on top as well, and it'll be a great way for him to finish. And yeah, I mean, there's definitely a bit more left in him. But, the other side of things is, like, Jordan Larmour's looking, going, well, I'd be quite happy if he went, wouldn't he? Do you know the way that people, that it's all very well and good, but it's like, there's a lot more talent, coming through as well. So, but I think he's been great. He's both stints, he's been great for Leinster.
He's 36 in July. I think I mentioned Rocky, and all the Leinster fans always think, oh, he's the most important foreign import because he's the one who gets them over the line. But actually, Isan Asiwa is the most important and best non-Irish player that Leinster have ever had.
Yeah, I mean, you just look at. I think I'm right in saying he's played in every position in the backs for Leinster over his career. But Leinster are very clever in how they manage him. Like they don't play him every week. Like I think it'd been 6 weeks or something since he'd played.
Right.
So they're very clever in how they manage him. I think he's, without using a cliche, he's a model pro. I mean, even the fact that he took that break, it just goes to show that it can work. And obviously he's more comfortable in the back three in the wing, but he played 12 and he did get caught out a couple of times on Sunday, but he's just a guy who, if you need a hole filled, he's going to do it, and he's going to be an 8 out of 10. Like, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Leinster, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he stays on, or at least if they try and convince him to stay on, because that effect that he has on the younger guys like Jordan Larmour, even though he, like Fiona said, might prefer if he sails off into the sunset, but he still adds huge value around the setup.
Yeah.
It's happened 3 times before when Leinster and Munster have been on opposite sides of the draws and have made the semi-finals, 03, 010 and of course last year. And on all 3 occasions, neither of the teams actually made it to the final. That is not going to happen this year, is it?
Well, yeah, Munster were just so poor in their semi-final last year. I just can't see them being as poor. I think it's interesting that they're going to South Africa for the next 2 weeks. They're looking at the positives of that, you know, getting out of the bubble. But it's not, like, I don't think it's ideal to be going halfway across the world. I mean, you look on the flip side, Leinster are playing the 2 Italian teams. Now, they can obviously rest their big guys. Munster have brought all 23 guys who were in their squad for the game against Toulon, which is interesting. Now, I don't think we'll see the likes of Conor Murray and CJ Stander playing both games, but CJ Stander is playing, they've moved the game this weekend to his hometown in George. So he's absolutely nailed on to be playing. Whereas if that's an ordinary, we'll say, home game against Zebra, like, I don't think you're going to see CJ Stander playing. So they've got to be careful over the next couple of weeks how they manage their resources. Of course, it'll be great to get away for the break. And Leinster, yeah, again, talk about not making the same mistakes that they did last year. I think, like I mentioned there, those younger players realise now what it takes to win at this level, and they're still hurting having lost against Claremont in that semi-final. So yeah, I can't really see both of them making the same mistakes, but a lot depends on the next 2 weeks and how, in terms of the injuries and things like that.
All right, we've got to leave it there. Fiona, thanks very much for joining us this morning. Cian, thanks for coming to the studio as well. Obviously, there'll be loads more rugby talk on the radio tonight on News Talk with Off the Ball, and of course in the build-up to those semi-finals, one of which we'll have live for you right here on Off the Ball. Now, we're talking football next with David Brady, going to join us in the studio. But first, though, a clip from the Sunday papers. Peter O'Reilly and Sinead O'Carroll joined Richie on the paper review. Here they are talking about Johan van Graan's channeling of the Munster crowd before their victory over Toulon.
And Dennis Walsh mentions it in his piece. Van Graan walked into the middle of the pitch and put his fist apparently on the centre spot and held it there for 10 seconds like he was trying to derive strength from the turf. I don't know what it was.
So he's almost went full Souness there. Short on placing the flag in the centre circle.
I'm not going to be too cynical about that, because I do buy into the Munster magic and I absolutely love watching them, and all year I've absolutely adored watching them. But I do think there's a huge amount of purposefulness around what Van Graan did this week. You know, talking about there's no heroes born in peacetime, and you know, I've seen Warriors this week. When you're talking about looking at their injury list, when you're looking at Toulon with the huge win that they're coming in with the huge men that they are, like, they are powerful team, and that was a big ask for Munster yesterday. So I think there was a bit of purposefulness from Van Graan, being like, you know, I've heard this Munster thing works, I've felt it, and now I'm going to really buy into it and see if everyone comes with me. And will it make a difference? Will it be that 1 point difference? And who knows if that. And I heard from people who were there yesterday, they said that they had never felt Thomond like that before. So, like, if Thomond can continually raise its game, that's quite a scary prospect.
Yeah, Sinead O'Carroll there talking on the Sunday paper review. David Brady, good morning to you.
Morning, Ger.
How are you?
All's good, boys. Yep.
So Galway are into 9-4. That's the biggest price they are now for the Connacht Championship. Mayo still the favourites. That's ridiculous. Come on, Galway are the favourites to win Connacht after this. They've been brilliant.
Are you giving after me or on?
I'm just saying. I'm not giving after anybody.
I'm give after the bookies, because the bookies are wrong. There's no way I could see Mayo as being a favourite for this. Look at May the 13th. It is, in all fairness, it's the only competitive championship left we have, and it's going to be an absolutely titanic struggle. I don't see I see Sligo being slight favourites, or Galway. But the one thing is, and it's in Castlebar, home advantage is, and I've seen people writing about it in the build-up to the National League final. Every sport, every game that's ever played, home advantage has a distinct advantage to the home team. Simple as that. And that's where I think that the ground has been evened, because Galway are ahead after this winter, after the National League they've had, after the display on Sunday as well. But yeah, there'll be the red carpet. The red carpet is going to be out.
Given this year's championship is the way it is, should both teams maybe pull back a little bit from going, it's do or die, it's like the be-all and end-all to win this game? Because ultimately, all they both need to do is to be fully fit by the time the Super 8 runs around and it's reset. That's all that matters.
There's not a chance that Mayo will get anywhere near Super 8 if they do not win on May the 13th.
Surely they get through the back door to the Super 8.
I'm telling you now, the bodies are going to be tight at the minute. They've been tight all the last 6 months. Like, you haven't got your Brendan Harrisons, your Keith Higgins, you haven't got your Chris Barretts, you haven't had your Tom Parsons, you haven't had your Shamie O'Shea's, you haven't had your Lee Keegans to a degree.
And you won't have for May 13th.
And you won't, no. And then you're going to get them guys back is going to be a major ask for backdoor games where Mayo will not survive.
So the fewer games, the better this year. That's the age profile.
That's the way. Without a doubt.
Although
at the age, you
would have said that last year, and even in extra time in various games, you would have said, "Oh Jesus, they look like they're out here." But it made no odds.
It made no. You know what? The Derry game, thanks be to God, it was at home. That's like your home fixtures in the back door are a major benefit to you.
Yeah.
But no, simple as that. What Galway will do is a different story, I think. But for Mayo, no, they have to stay away at every single, because the reality then is, when it comes to the Super 8s, that's when you need to be hitting peak. That's when you need to be having the batteries recharged. You need to be going at a full tilt, and it won't be a case from a Mayo perspective.
The one thing that said to me that Galway really mean business this year is the way that, kind of as Ger outlined there, they didn't see this as their one last opportunity to beat Dublin. I know Joe Brawley kind of referred to it in the aftermath, saying that it was a missed opportunity for Galway to actually go and beat Dublin, whereas in actual fact I feel that they've got bigger plans down the line and they didn't even want to show their hand. I know Stephen Rochford was in the stadium as well, so there's an element of that too, but I certainly think that Galway went to Croke Park on Sunday thinking about the wider game plan rather than thinking about getting their hands on a Division 1 title.
I don't know. Honestly, I do think that Galway in the back of their mind were like, and Kevin Walsh was he looked happy afterwards to get beaten by 4 points in the end. You're going to yourself, they didn't want a 10-point, a double-digit defeat, and that's something that would have been thrown back at them. That would have taken a lot of the positivity out of the National League. Was it going to happen? No, but it can. You know what? There's only one team in the country that it can happen within space of 3 or 4 minutes, and you could have seen it. You could have seen it happening to a degree, but not in the early stages, when Roy Lavelle's save, which was absolutely fantastic from was it Rock or Mannion?
Rock was the amazing save, and Mannion in the first minute.
half.
Like, you're going to yourself, Galway didn't really threaten goal all day. Dublin were on top. They would have went 6 up if they had got that goal. There was a time of that game, and I don't think, I wouldn't buy into think that Galway were holding a lot back. There was a time in that game in the 65th minute and it's what Dublin do absolutely fantastic, and people don't realise it. They double up on the simplicity of the way they play. Galway had an opportunity. They came back. They were a man up. They were 3 points down. They came back to a point down, and they had two opportunities to go ahead. And both of them opportunities were things that you would pull out of a video file and say, you do not do that. You do not take the shot under pressure. You hadn't an opening. It was a high percentage shot. There was a man in a better position. Galway did that, and Dublin do the opposite in them situations. They make it twice as simple. They give the one extra pass. Conor Callaghan came in. Was he going to ping it when it left? No, he puts it out to Kilkenny. Kilkenny pops it over from 22 yards out. The simplicity of, in a situation like that, when the game is in the in the melting pot, you play it twice as simple, and Galway didn't do that. They'll learn from it, and they need to learn from it, because they had an opportunity there when they went a man up. Dublin again, they were like the team that had the 15 men, but the way Galway play is that, you know, they have a very much like Dublin. Like Dublin, I thought were as defensive as I've ever seen them for a long periods of that game last week. Or on Sunday. I thought they were very, very defensive. Well, that's their game. That's the reality of it. And people say, why isn't Connolly playing, or why isn't this playing? When you have the likes of Scully working as hard as he is, when you have the likes of Brian Howard, like the amount of work rate they put in, but it's from the half-back line, or your half-forward line, dropping back, getting hands in, and that's why them guys, for me, and the new blood has brought something to Dublin.
They're in that sweet spot now that Kilkenny had, where they were in the middle of their run, where they're able to introduce 3 or 4 players who are really good. We don't know if they're going to be as great as the players they're replacing, but they're coming into a winning culture where the work rate and the selflessness and the sacrifice for the team is the be-all and end-all. And so you can interchange a lot of stuff when you still have the core structure.
Yeah, but you know what? And the core structure for Dublin, one vital part of that, and it's the same in it's modern day GAA football, is your half forward line. If you haven't got your half forward line of the likes of Scully, Howard, Kilkenny at times, you're going to yourself, that's the engine room of that team. Now to replace the likes of Paul Flynn, Jeremy Connolly, like them, but they were exactly what was wanted and required at the time.
Yeah.
Okay, your forwards, your defenders still have to defend, but it's the work rate from that diamond. Your half forward and your 2 midfielders.
Just on the point of them being more defensive, I think it's Vinnie Murphy talking today about how they really miss Cian O'Sullivan. That maybe that's a response to not having a like-for-like replacement ready to go into the team at the moment. You know, maybe John Small becomes that player. It could be one of a number of different. Maybe Johnny Cooper gets to go. You know, there's a bunch of different characters there. But when Cian O'Sullivan is out, that kind of force field that they have, that sense of, okay, that's our comfort blanket, that's gone from the team, and so collectively they need to work a bit harder at that. And it's just a theory. Yeah,
well, you know, I suppose he has been a fulcrum. O'Sullivan has been the main, you know, stopgap. He's the main orchestrator of their defence. Who has come back and replaced that? For me, and you could see it, you know, they have your Johnny, Philly and Small. They're all men to men. They're all the tight markers. They haven't really replaced Cian O'Sullivan on his absence, because O'Sullivan is a ball player as well. He's not an out and out. Like when all failed, Philly was under a bit of pressure. Johnny Cooper's under a bit of pressure. Johnny Small came up to the plate again and went back on Comer. And now was it Johnny Small, or was it the lack of ball going into him, or the pressure from outside that kind of nullified Comer in the second half? They haven't got the latitude. I honestly don't think to get another injury or a big name injury in their backs. I think that could be a serious Achilles heel problem for Dublin going forward.
The one thing that really stuck out to me, and it's something they've been doing for a long time, and other teams should certainly learn from this, is the relationship between the Dublin defenders and the referee in terms of, okay, so Johnny Cooper, Philly McMahon, David Byrne, whenever they gave away a free, and no matter how blatant or how cynical it was, they would approach the referee like they've just been accused of some sort of humanitarian crime or something. They looked absolutely abhorred that such a foul had been given. Like I saw at one stage Johnny Cooper and Davy Byrne, they both did this, where they actually accused Damien Comer of diving, and it was interesting because they actually made the diving signal despite the fact that they speak the same language as the referee. They've obviously been watching Champions League or something, and it's an unbelievable amount of kind of insistence that this is clearly a pre-planned thing, where they know they're in the wrong, but they're still going to have that word with the referee, because who knows, at the end of the day, if Damien Comer goes down in the box in the last minute, maybe the referee is thinking twice, and maybe he thinks that maybe those Dublin players were right in the first half, maybe he was diving, and it could go in their favour. It's a very, very smart thing to do, and it's cynical, but more teams should be doing it, right?
Well, more teams do it, but they probably don't do it as good as Dublin, and the whole thing is that it's about the marginal gains. Now the referee, he made some peculiar calls in my mind against Galway on Sunday. I thought the Niall Scully sending off wasn't a sending off. that I don't think the second free was a second yellow card. But there's a psychology awareness kind of proverb that, and if you look at Dublin, if you're told something, you see it. But if you're shown something, you learn it. And if you're shown the actual motion, and you'll often see a player going, "No, you're wrong, Ger," and it's the actual physical. It's the physical idea of you're seeing it, or he's diving, or he's pulling, and you're going to yourself, they're actually showing the referee, because the referee doesn't listen to you anyway. But if you show the referee what in your mind is happening, sometimes it resonates. It's a subversive kind of a psychological thing. But teams sit down and say, right, how do we get the small little margins? It's not the manager that takes this meeting. You might have someone come in that might have experience of it, that would be managers are accustomed to the dark arts. But it's the small things, but you will see it, and with Dublin as well, they will show you rather than tell you what's happening.
It's almost like controlling the uncontrollable.
Well, yeah, and that's part and parcel of competitive, top class sport. Whether it's from cricket, the small margins, and it goes against you, to football, to any sport. It's one or two calls. That's all you need.
How did Galway measure up against that? Because that was one of the things that at the start of the year, in the off season, they were doing pre Allianz League media, and they were all talking about how they need to be more streetwise. And look, the rules of engagement are the rules of engagement. And we understand that, we can park the moral argument for now. We can come back to that some other time. But the best teams are cheats, and they all cheat really well. And that's a grim enough thing to say, but they're all. And Galway will have watched. I wouldn't go as far
as that now.
Galway will have watched. Galway will have watched the last kick out in the All Ireland final last year and gone, "Oh, I like that. I need to do a bit of that if I want to beat Dublin." So, how did Galway do in this scale of showing the referee what's going on versus what?
You know what? They're if you've seen the first foul. With Damien Comer and Johnny Cooper, you're going, right, if Comer had a hold of Johnny and he was falling forward, make sure your man comes with you and you get your free in. They're not these guys are not kids. They've been around the block, whether it's club football, under 21 All-Irelands, and now getting again, freeing off the shackles of Division 2 can really give you momentum. And for the last 6-7 years, Galway have been in Division 2. You know what? I would say this thing, that no matter what their players they have on the pitch, they have one smart cookie off the pitch in their manager, and Kevin Walsh. Smart, intelligently, dark arts.
You had played against him, yeah?
Yeah. And
what was that like?
You know what? An absolute gentleman to play against from the sidelines. But on the pitch, you go to yourself, you know what, there's no real, they're not all cheaters like you said, but there's a definitive with Gavin. He goes, he's out to win.
What sort of things used he do?
No, he wouldn't be, you know what, he was tough, hard and physical. And he would have never, ever crossed the big white line of being absolutely...
He wasn't filthy.
No, he wasn't. I went back and said it. The whole thing, it was 2004 or 5, I think. I went to Boston with Kevin Walsh, and he was a selector on the Railway Cup team. And we were trying to sober up before team meetings in the morning. We went over there on a Thursday, so Friday morning, Saturday morning was, oh Jesus, Kevin Walsh was giving speeches in the hotel, and you're going, man, above, this fella wants us to run through the wall. The game was on Sunday.
Yeah.
He has that passion about him, and he has that, and look, I'll say it straight, he has that ability to rev up a team to make them feel as if they're being ridiculed, they're being undermined, their parents, their family are all being and you're going, and you see it the way Galway have played, especially against the Mayos of this world. Like, they've beaten Mayo twice, and they've went to them games with a greater sense of tenacity and toughness, as if they were the teams that was hurting, where it should have been Mayo, and he has that capability.
There's a big do-on for the '98 team in Galway. They're selling tickets for it at the moment, and there's photographs, and it's in, I can't remember which hotel it's in. I'm sure you can look up the details.
I've bought one.
Have you? Yeah. I'm sure it'll be a great night.
I won't be going to it, but I was forced into my one.
Well, fair play.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely won't be going either. But that sense and his link with that team, and all of the years of heartbreak in between, like, you feel like Galway are ready. And I don't want to overhype what we've seen in the league, but they're right there. They're right there in a way that you wouldn't say many of the other teams are right there at the moment. Like, okay, so Mayo we have to regard as being right there because no matter what's happened in the league in recent years, they've proven in the championship that they can make it. But like, making a case for Kerry to be right there at the moment, that's tough. Like,
you know what? It is tough. And if you look outside, it's a tough Tuesday morning and the rain pouring out of the sky and it's the start of April and everything else. The landscape will change. And I would have an opinion that if the likes of the Galways do come up against the championship Tyrones, the championship Curries, I don't know who I'd be favouring. That's been truthful. I think we can. Man says they have.
I think you probably still make Kerry into your own favourites by virtue of the fact that Galway haven't done it in championship.
Yes.
And they haven't done it in championship outside of Connacht.
Outside of Connacht, yes. And
you know,
they have the core base material for it, but it can go horribly wrong in one game.
They're a real team. They look like they have the makings of a real team at the moment.
They have, and they've got defensively wise. They have got a good core structure. They're actually they seem comfortable playing with each other. It's not that, like, these guys have come up over the last few years together, but they've learned from their mistakes, and they're not. Look, you can say to yourself, right, 18 points for Dublin. They didn't give away a goal. They were close to Rory Lavelle. Massive stop, but I would like to see his kick. Dublin put his kickouts under pressure. Midfield wise with Cook. And I like Tom Flynn. He came in off the bench as well. They have 3 or 4 guys that can switch in and out of midfield. You have to keep that engine going. A lot of teams, and you'll see it, and Mayo probably won, where the engine, you know, at the last 10 or 15 minutes, you need someone to bring in. Dublin have the people to bring in. Galway have the people to bring in. That's the big thing. Look, at Damien Comer is the talk of the country at the minute. He's good. He's strong. He's going to be, if he doesn't play well.
Yeah.
Galway don't play well.
Yeah.
Is that going to be the reality of a championship game where you're going, right, let's specifically take Comer out of it. Let's double team him. And
see what happens.
Like, it took Cooper, Philly Mack, and ended up John Small being saying, right, dedicated man marker. Like, I have to say, Small is probably one of the most underestimated defensively. He is the go-to man.
He's a good chance of being Footballer of the Year if they, you know, there's like one of those defenders.
Played every single game of the National League for Dublin. Every single game. But he was at it last year. And again, he is the man to say, right, whoever is causing us trouble. If I'm maybe I'm mistaken, but I think he went back on Andy in the second Andy Moore in the second half last year's All-Ireland final. He's top class. But again, for Galway, Shane Walsh, really, when you look at it and you look at the momentum of when Galway really needed someone, it was Shane Walsh that came to the fore on Sunday in the second half. And when they were nearly 3 points down. Yeah. And they came back, and
he looked pretty comfortable.
I thought he had led a lot of that. And as you say, I go back to your point, he got a lot of latitude around the half-hour line.
Yeah, and still made some mistakes that you can kind of point to the video afterwards and go, here, listen.
You know what?
There's
a massive. The amount of simple turnovers that Galway gave to Dublin was absolutely. It was crimeful. And again, kickouts from they had 2 bad kickouts, they got points. If you look at Dublin, right, anytime there's a hold-up, anytime there's a delay in the play, anytime there's a sub being made, they know themselves that their quick kick-out is wasted. So what do? They all come in to a single formation right up the middle, and you can see Cluxton, you know, if it's not on left, if it's not on right, someone else will make the break. And each
Galway
time
do it as well, in fairness, sometimes.
Each time on Sunday, when there was a break and play, there was a sub down, man coming on, man coming off, Cluxton hit his man each and every time. When often it was a corner or a half forward or even a corner forward coming back and going out to the far left or far right. That's experience, and Galway need to learn from that. A lot of things in the video that they will look back and say, Jesus, how did I just give a simple hand pass?
Yeah.
give away possession.
Yeah, just on the kickouts there, it's interesting that you mention the stoppages in play, because obviously there's a lot more of them in the second half. So naturally, Cluxton's kickouts are probably more effective in the second half. And on that point, John Dively in the Irish Examiner yesterday broke it down by half, and he said that in the first half, I think Stephen Cluxton was allowed to go short 4 times or something like that, and each time it was a very successful moment for Dublin. They got a score out of it, or they got into a position, and it was conclusive proof that you have to push up on Stephen Cluxton's kickouts. But as you just outlined, in the second half, sometimes you don't have that option because there's a stoppage in play and they get into a set-piece formation almost.
Yeah, and you're going. It's nearly like an American football drill where they know exactly the timing of the runs and everything else. And I agree. You have to push up. You have to push out on Cluxton's kickouts, because what you're doing is, if you don't, you're giving Dublin the ball, and giving Dublin the ball, they are the most comfortable team in history. But even when they were down to 14 men, they were playing keep ball against Galway, because again Galway, they kind of knew, and they were playing keep ball around their own half back line and towards their own full back line, but they knew Galway had their extra man push back, where Galway, I thought, should have pushed their extra man forward and put a lot more pressure on the Dublin backs. But yeah, you have to put the pressure on Cluxton. The only pressure, the pressure on Cluxton, I think a lot of people in this country would put the pressure on him to retire, because it changes the whole landscape of Dublin football to a degree when you haven't got him.
He can go forever though. Like, there was they put up video on YouTube of Jim doing a press conference. It was like pre-match stuff, and there was a bit of training, and he's just doing the same drills as everybody else, and he looks like he's as happy now as he's ever been in his life. And like, they're on the verge of greatness. Like, they're on the verge of all-time greatness. They're already great. So just in case I misspoke before you all start killing me, but they're like, he will go down as the greatest goalkeeper of all time. This team will go down as the greatest team of all time if they continue to win at the rate they're winning at, and there's no reason why they won't.
You know what? The older I get, the better I was, and that's the reality with this team. Because it's down the line that we'll be all men, and our sons, or our family, or our they will be talking about the team.
They'll all be growing up in Dublin and like going for the 90th title in a row.
Yeah, and you go to yourself, you know what, this is great, but it's only down the line that we'll get to appreciate these players. And again, if you look at it, and it's with papers here, and they'll probably list, every paper lists what Dublin players aren't there. What Dublin players aren't playing, what aren't on the panel or injured. You only say, by these the ones that have.
Yeah, Conor Callaghan coming off the bench, like straight back in, straight in the team. There's no he needs to do a bit of training with us. It's like straight in the team.
But that's the respect you have. But you know what? When he got the ball, you're going to yourself, don't tell me he's going to put a point over from 45 yards out with his left hand.
Yeah.
What did he do? He did the simple things twice, because he came on at a crucial time, at a crucial juncture, and he laid ball back to Kilkenny, and he got on ball, but he didn't try to be the hero.
And winning that kick out was probably his most crucial intervention as well. Just in terms of, I guess you mentioned it there, in terms of awareness and kind of comfort on the ball. Watching Cian Kilkenny on Sunday, you'd wonder if he was born in the United States, if he could have become a top-level quarterback, because his knowledge of space is unbelievable. He knows where the space is going to open up. He doesn't just exploit the space that already exists. He sees where the defender and where his teammates are going to move, and he moves into that space or gives the hand pass to the player who's going to exploit that space. And his relationship is remarkable, and you can really see the work of Mark Ingle, the basketball coach, in the team, the basic basketball principle of attacking the weak side. And Kilkenny just epitomises that. And it's very, very hard to teach that. But if England was only brought in, post-2014, in the space of 4 years, 3 years even, it's become a thing that they're unbelievably competent at.
Unbelievable. And you know what? I don't know, when they sent out that clip of the Jim Gavin conference, like, you kind of say to yourself, every one of the drills, and they have a ball in their hand.
Yeah.
And that's the reality of football now. But you look, he's on the back page of the paper there, and he's eating a lot of broccoli, because he even has beefed up. He's in serious shape, but he has beefed up. But there's one thing you don't need to beef up about Colonel Kenny, that's his brain. He is as intelligent footballer as you get. Now again, it's a case of, you have a guy that is getting on so much ball, and 50% of the time he gets on the ball, he's giving it back to someone else. But he's the link. He is the creator. But if you got to say to yourself, well, Ger, do we put a man with him and let ourselves, and we're opened up defensively because you want to take someone out of that defensive formation, or do we sit back? And if you want to stop Kieran Kilkenny doing it, there's only one way you can do it, and I think there's only one man that can do it, and that has been Lee Keegan. By going wherever he goes, whatever he does, you're a foot ahead of him, not behind him, and that's he is key to the way Dublin plays. And again, they have not been shy in showing us, not even glimpses, a constant, and it's a lot of it is from ball that's been kind of slow ball coming from the back that you hit the full forward line, and they've tried 3 or 4 times last Sunday to hit Kilkenny when he was sitting in the full forward line, because he has a big physical presence, and again, if you can get a bit of space or one-on-one, it hasn't worked to a degree, but we're going to see it more of it throughout the summer without a doubt.
They'll get better at it as they practice it more.
It's definitely something they are. They're not going to say just let's pretend we're doing this now for the summer. No, it's and again to stop it. It means that you're going to have someone that's better and more capable than Kieran Kilkenny sitting on the edge of the square.
Just to finish this up, we're looking at the teams to see who can improve and who can actually get better to try and close the gap on Dublin. But remember, this is a Dublin team that had, Gavin says, 3 significant training sessions before the start of the league. They holidayed late again. They're the team who has the most room to grow and improve over the course of the next 6-8 weeks. And remember, they're the team who don't need to peak until the Super 8 starts, as opposed to Mayo and Galway needing to peak for the 13th. So Kerry don't need to peak as well until the Super 8s. But everybody else needs to get in some kind of shape before then.
You look at Tyrone and Gavin going out now in 5-6 weeks.
Best of luck, lads.
Jesus, good luck with that. And you're going, what are you going to do tonight at training? And you're going, because it is. I remember after your break in the National League, your first week back was hell. Absolute hell, because you probably had 3 or 4 days off. You had a club game and you had 1 or 2 nights out in the beer. But it's now you're going to yourself, it gives Dublin, and I don't care what people say, it gives Dublin such an advantage to have that group of players in, constantly focus on one thing. That they don't, and I don't think any of them has disrespected a team or a player in the last 5 or 6 years. But they know in their heart and souls, and Jim Gavin knows, and their trainers knows, and their strength and conditioning guys knows, they need to pick for the Super 8s. They'll whether it's a Kildare or Meath that's in the Leinster final that's going to push them. They know exactly their timetable is set out for them, and they have that advantage big time, and it's a good advantage, but you have to say fair play to them. Yeah, no, good stuff. DB, thanks very much. Pleasure, boys. I'm going to talk with Paddy Agnew from Italy in just a moment about the Champions League, which are the games which are taking place tonight. First though, we're going to bring you another clip from Sunday's papers. Here's Sinead O'Carroll of the Journal.ie speaking to Richie about the beauty of hurling in the springtime.
The league doesn't really, as a GA person, excite me as much as it should, because I just hate watching football.
Because you're from Kildare.
We've failed to win many games across any code this year so far, unfortunately. I think the ladies footballers have got 1 or 2 wins, that's about it. But just I hate seeing hurling played in January and February. I just think it's
not right conditions for hurling.
Completely wrong. And there was a big difference then yesterday. You know, we're in springtime now, and there was a big market increase in the quality of what we saw in Limerick and Tip. But anyway, it's kind of we're starting to get to some kind of business end, so it's nice, which is kind of crazy that now everyone has to go back to their clubs in April, and we still got no clarity on fixtures, but that's a whole different argument.
Yeah, which we will definitely get into over the next while, because it's one of the main things that we have to talk about for the next month, given that there's only the hurling final to look forward to next week. That's it then. That's the beauty of the GAA. It's like, let's create a month where we've got no sideshow here of any news agenda. It's just a perfect pool of potential negativity that could come out about the GAA. If you have to release a press release, GAA, and this would be my message to the GAA, don't do it in April.
like, if you've got any negative news to bring us, just do it sometime in the middle of the summer, because there is just ripe pickings here. People will be desperate to chat about GAA, and there is no games to talk about except for in clubs. When it comes to the national landscape, there could be a lot of negative things to talk about.
A quick recap of the headlines. Elliott's Lucky 13, less fancied of Gordon's runners, hits jackpot. This is yesterday General Principal getting home in the Irish Grand National at Fairyhouse. Today's Fairyhouse card, by the way, has been cancelled after an early inspection this morning, and we can go all the way in Europe, says Leavy. Of course you would expect Dan Leavy to say that, but the Welsh fans have been taking pictures of the All-Ireland final and spreading that around amongst the Scarlets message groups. I'm like, oh, okay, maybe we should tone this down a little bit. Dan the man, pride of the family on a special day for the Leavys. His granny was 96 in Mullingar. Obviously Dan didn't get to go to the celebrations, but will be dropping up apparently. From El Nino to El Hombre, that's the Sergio Garcia. He is now a man because he's got a green jacket and a wife.
Well, like, that's the first step into manhood, isn't it? It's like you purchase yourself a green jacket. Of course, he won himself a green jacket, but you know, that is when you become a man, isn't it? You buy yourself a green jacket.
I did actually buy a green jacket for my only ever job interview as an 18-year-old.
There you go, proof in the pudding.
Take it to the max. Max Allegri wants the Chelsea Antonio Conte job. Pard luck runs out. Taxi for Pard. That was my favourite one. Triple threat for Pep. This is an early preview of the game between Manchester City and Liverpool. Obviously, very important that we get there. And you've got Mo Hope. You do have hope because you've got Mo.
As we've established, let's not dwell on that headline any longer. The back of the Irish Independent says Elliott's general rules in national. That is, of course, General Principle covered in mud yesterday after a crazy race at Fairyhouse in the Irish Grand National. The Mirror is going, Conte wanting to leave Chelsea. Basically can't read it in a posh English accent. Another thing we established earlier on. Pal Viali says Italian hates it at the bridge.
Nice of Gianluca Vialli to spill the beans.
Well, he clearly does. He's stopped. His passion has kind of lessened. His love for football has been killed.
He should have just gone out and punched Jose Mourinho. That was the moment. That was it. Like,
just punch something. Like
Mourinho.
Go home and punch his fridge or something, or I don't know, punch an inanimate object.
We wouldn't get to see that though.
Of course, it's more entertaining for the person, but like clearly there's just an unleashing of violence that needs to happen in his.
Going to cost £9 million for them because he's another year in his contract after this. So to get rid of him, it's going to cost at least $9 million, and then all his staff as well. So it could be up to 11.5 million.
Who cares?
Conte. Apparently Abramovich cares.
Does he really care about 9 or 11 million?
No, apparently he's become a bit tight in his old age.
Well, he's tight in comparison to, say, Qatari, to Qatar owning a football club. Of course he's tight in comparison to that, but 9 or 11 million to finally get Antonio Conte out of your hair, that miserable man who's lost all his love for football. Screw him. Here's 11 million straight up, Antonio. Go back home to Italy.
In cash.
In cash, yeah, absolutely. Or just, do you want a yacht or do you want 11 million? It's up to you. There'll be various forms of payment if you wanted, Antonio.
Right. Let's move on. Big games in the Champions League tonight, Sevilla and Bayern Munich, but the one that we want to focus on now is Juve against Real Madrid. Paddy Agnew joins us to talk to us a little bit about this. It's the Zinedine Zidane derby. Paddy, good morning to you. How you doing?
Good morning, folks.
So, Allegri is apparently already speaking in English in press conferences to try and subtly drop hints that he wants a job in English football. Zidane is apparently already on his way out unless he can deliver a third Champions League in succession. This is a ridiculous sideshow to what promises to be a really good game.
Yeah. Of course, I agree. A ridiculous sideshow to a game which sees a reproduction of last year's final and a game in which Juventus come up against a side that really have been a bit of a problem for them over the years. Because, the reality is Juve have been to 6 Champions League finals in the last 20 years, and they've only won once. And twice the side that's beaten them in the final was Real Madrid. And, obviously, they're approaching this one with a lot of circumspection.
Tell us a little bit more about Allegri and why he's reached this point of finality, it seems, with the Juve job.
Well, it's not entirely clear whether it is finality or not, but it's obvious enough why he would have got to that point, because if he wins the league title this year in Italy, and it looks very much like he will, that'll be the 7th consecutive league title he wins with them. So you would say to yourself, he would say to himself, well, I'm not sure if I can do a lot more here. I've had a couple of goes to the Champions League. I've been 2 Champions League finals. I've lost those. Maybe I'll move on.
It's as simple as that. It's just a little bit of change as good as the rest for somebody in Allegri's position. And also his reputation is never going to be higher than it can be now.
Absolutely, he's at the top of his reputation in not just in Italy but in Europe. But I mean, I think that whole group of coaches. I mean, we've got used to it by now. You know, the Mancinis, Ancelottis, Ranieris, Mourinho's. These guys, they just move all the time, and you know their shelf life in a big club. You know, the Barcelonas, the Man Uniteds, the Man Cities is 2 or 3 years if they're lucky.
Like, there's one thing wanting a rest or wanting a change from your current environment, which is completely acceptable when it comes to this Allegri story. But then there's this other thing about joining Chelsea. Surely there has to be an element of self-loathing about wanting to actually work for Roman Abramovich.
Well, the paycheck's good. I'm not convinced about where it is that Allegri wants to go. I would be convinced that he probably wants to go somewhere in the Premiership. That's the logical place for him to go. But there have been, there've been every now and again his name is linked also to big Spanish clubs, starting with Real Madrid and working down. So I wouldn't put all your eggs in the Chelsea basket there.
Real Madrid actually seems to make a lot of sense when you consider, I mean, it makes no sense, obviously, that they would think about getting rid of Zidane because they've had a bad league campaign after his incredible start to his managerial career. But from the way that this works and from the realpolitik of the situation, it makes a lot of sense that they could easily end up with somebody like Allegri. They've got a track record of looking to Italy for managers and having Italian managers find success there.
Yeah, well, Ancelotti didn't do too badly. Capello didn't do too badly. There's also the environmental consideration that, I mean, a coach like Allegri would transfer to the Spanish context, Spanish reality, much more easily than he would to England. He'd have a lot of difficulty, initial difficulty, adapting to England. And culturally speaking, not just football culture, but every type of culture, whereas he'd settle in much quicker at Real Madrid. I think also football-wise, tactically, he'd be much better suited to the sort of football he meets he would meet in the Liga in Spain than what he'd have to do with the Premiership.
Talk to us a little bit about what you expect from Juve tonight and where the weakness in the Juve team is, if there is one for Real Madrid to exploit.
Well, they're going to line up with what they call a 4-3-3, but it's actually a 4-3-2-1. In other words, Higuain on his own up in front of Douglas Costa and Dybala. They're in pretty good shape. I mean, the important thing about Juve is they had a very important win on Saturday night against AC Milan. An AC Milan side, they're playing very well. They beat them 3-1, maybe a bit flattered to win 3-1 in the end, but really impressive performance in a game in which AC Milan had the better of the game for a long while, and Juve, soaked it up, contained it, and then absolutely clinically finished them off in the second half. So they're in very good shape, both mentally and physically. They're only missing one player that matters, and that would be the Croat Mario Mandzukic, who's always very important for them. He's on the bench tonight. Doesn't look like he'll play. I expect Juve, obviously, I don't think there's any other way it can go. They'll have to sit back and hang on. They'll play a very Italian game. I mean, Allegri. One thing about Allegri is he is a classic Italian coach in the old sense, in that his team starts and is built from the defence forward, and it's a pretty sound defence. Even though they've lost Bonucci, plays for AC Milan. It's so I expect them to try and ride out the storm, the first half storm at the Bernabeu, and then hang on, at the very least, to hang on for a draw, or if not, to try and sneak one. Because with sneak one through somebody like Higuain, who'll be in an absolute lone ranger role up front. Is their midfield good enough? Well, people like Pjanic, Khedira are useful players. My answer to you is that it would depend on how much work the other players around them are willing to do to cover. I mean, that is obviously you don't have a player like Marquisio anymore, for example, who was much more a worker in some of the players. But Khedira is an important player to them. He's been injured and he's come back to form. He scored a wonderful goal on Saturday night. I think he's going to have a good game.
Yeah, you look at someone like Pjanic as well, who I think is suspended for the first leg, and like you think Modric, you think Casemiro, you think Kroos, and how good they were in the Champions League final last year. And I understand that the narrative is very easy to put on that the Champions League final last year, and the managers are keen to point out that it's not a rematch really as such. It's a new season, a very different landscape. But when you look at that, and you look at the loss of Pjanic as well, it could become a Real Madrid overrunning Juve in midfield. But that being said, the reasons you've just outlined there a couple of moments ago, that AC Milan performance on Saturday, when you think that they're getting nowhere in a game, they can suddenly hit you for a couple of goals.
Yeah, it's exactly what they did to AC Milan the other night. I don't know. I wouldn't be predicting them hitting Real Madrid for a couple of goals tonight, though. I think they'd be feeling very happy if they managed to stop Real Madrid hitting them for a couple of goals.
Just one last thing I wanted to talk to you about, the long-standing relationship that Zidane has, obviously, with Juve. He says that he learned the culture of going for it and always needing to win when he was there. That period of Juve's existence where they were really the best team in the continent and like, I don't know if they've ever quite hit that same peak again.
Well, no, I don't think they have. You're absolutely right. They were one of the best teams. That was, but you're talking about a period then in the 90s when Italian football ruled the waves. And no, they haven't got back to the same level. But it's been very difficult for them because they've had to work up from the Calciopoli scandal and the relegation to Serie B and work up bit by bit by bit. And they've done well to get as far as they've done. But obviously, they won't consider the job done until they win the Champions League. And even though they keep on telling us that, well, we want to win the league title as well, there isn't any doubt about the thing that they really want to win and need to win to establish their international credentials, their worldwide credentials, is the Champions League. And if and when they manage to do that, then you could say they've got back to the level of the team in the mid-90s, because that team played in three different finals, three finals, one after the other. Beat Ajax and then lost to Borussia Dortmund and Real Madrid. So if they got a win is required to get back to that level.
Is Zidane a potential Juve manager into the future just by virtue of the fact that he has that relationship with the club, or is that link kind of broken?
No, I don't think that link is broken at all. And I think Juventus, it's a good question. I haven't seen much speculation about that, but it's Juventus are absolutely one of those clubs where the fact that you played for them and did well for them really matters. The answer is yes, he could be. If he's actually in jeopardy at Real Madrid, he could be. He could certainly find new employment at Juventus.
He was obviously there when Del Piero was there. Was Zidane considered the star at the time, or was Del Piero as the?
They were both stars. There was no question. They seem to, I don't know if you've ever met Zidane. Zidane's an immensely humble person for such a fantastic footballer, such a good coach. He's not somebody who does numbers, not somebody who's full of self-importance. He's not the special one. He doesn't pull acts like that. And I remember, in the days when he was a player, he was exactly the same. And he left space for players all around him, and he got on very well with Del Piero. There was no tension, and very much because of Zidane.
All right, Paddy, we'll let you go. Thanks very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Paddy Agnew there with some thoughts ahead of the game tonight. Now, as ever, if you want to get in touch with us, you can drop us a quote or a comment on quote.
How much do you charge for your commentary there?
15 quid. You can get us at Off the Ball AM on Twitter, or we're on facebook.com/Off the Ball.
We are. Everything you said there is truly factual. Real Madrid Juventus, it's a strange sort of midweek scenario now where we're just kind of recovering from an amazingly packed weekend of sport, and it's just straight into the next one. A brilliant midweek schedule, the Masters. Has this happened before where you've got a bumper weekend right into a bumper midweek into another bumper weekend?
Not bad, is it?
It's a 10-day stretch which we just got to be living in the moment for.
We'll look back wistfully in a couple of months' time and go, what the hell was that all about? A reminder that OTB AM is brought to you this morning with Air, the home of Air Sport. Get amazing live sporting content free with Air Broadband. That's pretty much all we have time for. The lads will be back this evening on the radio, and we'll see you tomorrow morning, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, at around about 7:30. Good luck.
AM. In association with Air. Get Air Sport free with Air Broadband.